I walked 300 miles to reach the village I'd left 3 years ago. My boots were held together with leather strips. My cloak was stained with mud and blood from a dozen battlefields. My face was scarred. My hair had gone gray at the temples. But I was alive. I'd survived the wars in the East, survived 3 winters of fighting, and I was finally home. Except nobody recognized me. Nobody cared. And within hours of my return, they'd blame me for murder and throw me in chains like a common criminal. If you believe a warrior's honor should matter more than how he looks, hit that subscribe button now. This story proves that sometimes the people who judge you fastest know you the least. My name is Eirik. 3 years ago, I left this village as a young warrior, 25 winters old, strong, eager. I'd been recruited by Jarl Magnus the Great for his eastern campaigns, wars against the Rus, against the steppe riders, against enemies most Norse had never even heard of. It was an honor to be chosen, a chance for glory, for wealth, for a name that would be remembered. I had no family to leave behind. My parents died when I was young. No wife, no children. Just a small hut on the edge of the village and a few friends who promised to remember me. "Come back a hero," they'd said. "Come back rich and we'll feast for a week." I came back, but not rich. Not a hero in any way these villagers would recognize. I came back scarred, tired, wearing the face of a man who'd seen too much death. The Eastern wars had been brutal, not the quick raids we sang about, but grinding campaigns, months of siege warfare, winter battles where you couldn't feel your fingers, summers where disease killed more men than blades. But I'd survived. And more than survived. I'd risen through the ranks, earned my position through blood and competence. By the end, I was commanding 200 warriors, making tactical decisions that saved lives, building a reputation among men who actually fought beside me. But here, in this tiny fishing village, nobody knew that. Nobody cared. I reached the village at sunset, the same wooden gates I'd walked through 3 years ago, the same guard post. A young warrior I didn't recognize stood watch. He looked at me with the universal expression guards reserve for beggars and drifters. "State your business," he said, not hostile, just bored. "I'm returning home. I left 3 years ago for the Eastern Wars." He looked me up and down, saw the worn clothes, the old scars, the gray hair. "You don't look like a warrior. You look like someone who got lost. Move along. We don't give handouts to wanderers." "I'm not asking for handouts. I live here. Had a hut on the eastern edge, near the forest." "That hut's been empty for years. Someone else lives there now. Unless you can prove you're who you claim, you're not getting in." "I can prove it. Just let me speak to the village elder, to Thora. She'll remember me." The guard laughed. "Thora died 2 winters ago. Her son runs the village now, and he doesn't waste time on beggars." I felt like I'd been punched. Thora dead? She'd been the closest thing to family I had. The woman who'd taken me in after my parents died, who'd taught me to fight, who'd been proud when I was chosen for the wars. "Let me speak to her son then, Olaf. We grew up together." "Olaf's busy. Important man now. Successful trader. He doesn't have time for every drifter who shows up claiming connections." I was about to argue when a voice called from inside the village. "Let him in, you fool. He's obviously harmless. Just another broken warrior crawling home." The gate opened. I walked through. The village looked the same, but felt different. Like I was seeing it through a stranger's eyes. People stared at me. Not with recognition, with suspicion. with the wariness you show to outsiders. I walked to what used to be my hut. The guard was right. Someone else lived there now. A family. Children playing in the yard. The father saw me approaching and stepped out, hand on his axe. "This is private property. Move along." "I used to live here. Before the wars. I wanted to see it." "Well, you've seen it. Now leave before I call the guards." Comment below if you've ever returned somewhere only to find you don't belong anymore. Let me know you're still listening. I spent that night in the forest, cold, hungry, trying to process what had happened. 3 years of fighting, 3 years of surviving, and I came home to nothing. No welcome, no recognition, not even a place to sleep. The next morning I returned to the village, tried to find Olaf. Maybe he would remember me. Maybe one person would believe who I was. I found him in the trading square, wealthy now, well-dressed, surrounded by assistants and merchants. "Olaf," I said. "It's me, Eirik. We grew up together. Remember?" He looked at me like I was a particularly annoying insect. "I don't know any Eirik, and I don't appreciate beggars using my childhood friends' names to scam me. I'm not a beggar. I'm a warrior. I fought in the Eastern Wars. I commanded men. Every beggar claims to be a warrior. Every drifter has a glorious past. If you were really who you claim, you'd have proof, documentation, something from your Jarl. But you don't. You just have worn clothes and desperate lies. I have scars. You have nothing I want to see. Guards, remove this man. If he bothers me again, throw him in the stocks." They dragged me away. I didn't resist. What was the point? I was nobody here, a ghost of someone they'd forgotten. The village had moved on without me, and I was just an uncomfortable reminder of a past they'd rather not acknowledge. I survived that first week through small kindnesses. An old woman who gave me bread when no one was looking. A farmer who let me sleep in his barn. But mostly, I was invisible. The forgotten warrior. The man who came back wrong. Then, everything changed. On the 7th day of my return, the Jarl's son was found dead, and suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the most visible person in the entire village, because I was the only one they could blame. The body was found in the woods. Young Harold, the Jarl's son, barely 20 winters. His throat had been cut. Clean, professional. The kind of kill a trained warrior would make. Someone who knew how to end a life quickly and quietly. I heard the screaming from my spot near the forest edge where I'd been trying to build a shelter from branches and mud. The entire village mobilized. Torches, weapons, panic in their voices. By the time I walked toward the commotion to see what was happening, they were already pointing at me. "There!" someone shouted. "The stranger! The one who's been lurking around for a week! He did it! Had to be him! He's the only outsider!" I raised my hands. "I don't know what happened. I just heard the screaming. What? Young Harold is dead!" Olaf pushed through the crowd. His face was red, furious, grief-stricken. "Murdered in the woods, throat cut. And you," he pointed at me, "were seen near the forest this morning." "I've been near the forest all week. I'm living there because no one will let me inside the village." Convenient excuse. A drifter with no name, no history, no one to vouch for him. Shows up and suddenly the Jarl's son is dead. You're either the killer or the unluckiest man alive. I didn't kill anyone. I'm a warrior, not a murderer. You claim to be a warrior, but you have no proof, no documentation, no one who knows you. For all we know, you're an outlaw, a criminal running from justice. Maybe you killed Harold because he recognized you. Maybe he knew what you'd done. The crowd was getting uglier, angrier, people looking for someone to blame. And I was perfect, the outsider, the stranger, the man with no connections, no protectors, no one who would defend him. "Search him!" someone yelled. "Check for the murder weapon!" They grabbed me, rough hands pulling at my clothes, checking my belt, my pack. And then one of them pulled out my knife, the blade I'd carried for 3 years, the blade that had saved my life a dozen times, the blade that had fresh blood on it. "Look!" the guard held it up triumphantly. "Blood on the blade! He killed Harold and didn't even bother to clean his weapon!" "That's from a rabbit," I said desperately. "I caught it this morning, skinned it for food. That's rabbit blood, not human." "Liar!" Olaf's voice cracked with grief and rage. "My nephew is dead, and you killed him. I don't care what excuses you make. I don't care what lies you tell. You're the only suspect, the only person without ties to this village, the only one who benefits from chaos." "How do I benefit? What motive would I have?" "Robbery. Harold had a gold arm ring. It's gone. You killed him for his jewelry like the low-life thief you are." Would you believe the outsider or blame them without investigation? Comment what you do. They dragged me toward the village center. No trial, no investigation, just mob justice fueled by grief and fear. They threw me into the holding cell beneath the village hall. A small stone room, chains bolted to the wall. The same cell they used for drunks and thieves. "You'll hang at sunrise," Olaf said through the bars. "The Jarl will arrive tomorrow to confirm the sentence. But we don't need confirmation. Everyone knows you're guilty. Everyone sees the truth. A stranger. A killer. A man who thought he could murder a Jarl's son and walk away." "I didn't kill him. I swear on every god, I didn't." "Your oaths mean nothing. You're nothing. A ghost pretending to be a person. Tomorrow, you'll be less than nothing. Just another criminal who got what he deserved." The door slammed. The lock clicked. I was alone in the darkness, chained like an animal, condemned for a crime I didn't commit. And nobody cared about the truth. They just wanted someone to blame, someone to punish, someone who wouldn't be missed. I sat in that cell and thought about the irony. 3 years of war, 3 years of fighting for Norse settlements, protecting villages just like this one, rising through the ranks, earning the respect of warriors who actually knew what combat meant. And I survived all of it, only to come home and be executed by people too blind to see past my dirty clothes and gray hair. People who'd rather kill an innocent man than admit they didn't know who the real murderer was. I must have fallen asleep eventually, exhaustion and despair dragging me under. I woke to the sound of horses, many horses, the thunder of hooves on packed earth, voices shouting, not panic, command voices, military voices. Then I heard it, the sound that would change everything. Heavy boots marching in formation, the rhythmic stomp of trained warriors moving as a unit, and voices, dozens of voices, calling out in the disciplined cadence of soldiers reporting to their commander. The cell door burst open, torchlight flooded in. But it wasn't Olaf. It wasn't the village guards coming to drag me to execution. It was warriors, real warriors, wearing the armor of Jarl Magnus's Eastern veterans. And at their head stood Captain Bjorn, a man I'd fought beside for 2 years, a man who'd served under my command in a dozen battles. His eyes went wide when he saw me. "Commander Eirik? What in the gods' names are you doing in chains?" Captain Bjorn's question hung in the air like smoke. The village guards who'd thrown me in this cell stood frozen in the doorway. Their faces showed confusion, fear, a dawning realization that they'd made a catastrophic mistake. "You know this man?" Olaf pushed through the soldiers. He'd arrived at the commotion. His confident swagger from yesterday was gone. Now he looked nervous, uncertain. Bjorn turned slowly. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "Know him? This is Commander Eirik, leader of the Second Eastern Company, the man who held the Volga River crossing against 300 Rus warriors, the man who saved Jarl Magnus's life at the Battle of the Frozen Plain, the man I and every warrior here would follow into the gates of hell itself." The color drained from Olaf's face. "That's impossible. This man is a beggar, a drifter. He showed up a week ago with no proof, no documentation, no proof?" Bjorn's voice rose. "Look at his scars. That mark on his throat? Arrow wound from the siege of Novgorod. The burn on his left arm? Greek fire at Constantinople. The way he stands? That's 3 years of command. 3 years of bearing responsibility for 200 lives. You don't fake that. You earn it in blood." Another soldier pushed forward, younger, his face showing recognition and shame. "Commander Eirik trained me, taught me shield wall formation, saved my life when I broke rank at the Dnieper. I owe him everything. And you people—" He looked at the village guards with disgust. "You put him in chains? Would you believe a commander could look like a beggar? Or judge only by appearance? Tell me in the comments." More soldiers entered the cell. Not guards now. My warriors. Men I'd led. Men I'd bled beside. Each one recognized me immediately, despite the gray hair and worn clothes. Each one showed visible shock and anger at finding me imprisoned like a criminal. "Release him," Bjorn ordered. "Now." But he's accused of murder," Olaf stammered. "The Jarl's son, Harald, found dead this morning with his throat cut. And this man, Commander Eirik, was the only stranger in the village, the only suspect." Bjorn grabbed the chains, tore them from the wall with his bare hands. The iron bolts screeched as they pulled free from stone. He turned to face Olaf with barely controlled fury. "Commander Eirik is many things. Warrior, tactician, the finest leader I've ever served under. But he is not a murderer of children. He doesn't kill from shadows. If he wanted someone dead, he'd challenge them face to face, with honor, like a warrior, not cut their throat in the woods like a coward." "Then who killed Harald?" Olaf demanded. "Someone murdered him. Someone in this village. If not the stranger, then who?" "That's what we'll find out," I said quietly. My voice was hoarse from days of limited water and no proper food. "Because I'm not leaving this village under a cloud of suspicion. Someone killed that boy. Someone let me take the blame. And I'm going to find out who." Bjorn handed me a water skin. I drank deeply. The liquid tasted like salvation. "Commander, we received word from Jarl Magnus. He sent us to find you. When you didn't report back after the campaigns ended, he assumed you'd been killed. We've been searching for 2 months. Never expected to find you here, in your home village, in chains." "I came home," I said simply. 3 years away, I thought. I trailed off, looked at the villagers gathered outside the cell. All the people who'd ignored me, mocked me, assumed I was worthless because I looked poor. I thought I'd be welcome. I was wrong. "You're welcome here," Bjorn said firmly. "With us, with warriors who know your worth. These villagers?" He looked at them with contempt. "They don't deserve you." "Maybe not, but an innocent boy is dead, and I'm going to find his killer. Not for them, for Harald. Because he deserves justice, real justice. Not the mob vengeance they tried to serve me." I walked out of that cell a different man than the one who'd been thrown in. No longer a beggar, no longer invisible. The soldiers parted for me, not because of my dirty clothes or gray hair,
Because of the way I carried myself. The way command sits on a man's shoulders. The invisible weight that marks someone who's led warriors through hell and brought them home. Olaf tried to stop me at the door. "You can't just investigate. You're not the law here. The village elders decide." "I am the law," I said quietly. "Jarl Magnus gave me authority over military matters in the Eastern Territories. That authority extends to crimes involving his soldiers. Harold was training to join the Eastern campaigns. That makes his death my jurisdiction. And I will solve it, with or without your cooperation." The village had changed overnight. No longer did people ignore me. Now they stared, whispered, watched with fear and respect as I walked through the square surrounded by my warriors. The beggar had become a commander. The outsider had become the authority. And someone in this village was very, very nervous about what I might discover. Because the real killer knew something nobody else did. They knew I wasn't just some random drifter. They'd recognized me. And they'd killed Harold specifically to frame me. To get rid of a witness who might have seen something, known something, remembered something from 3 years ago that was worth killing to keep hidden. I just had to figure out what. I started with the body. Harold lay in the village hall, prepared for burial. The local healer, an old man named Gunnar, had cleaned the wounds. I examined the throat cut. Clean. Single stroke, left to right. Deep enough to sever the artery, but not the spine. Professional work. "What do you see?" Bjorn asked. He stood beside me, my second pair of eyes, like old times. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. This isn't a panicked killing, not a robbery gone wrong. The killer approached from behind. Harold never saw him coming. Probably knew his killer, trusted him enough to let someone get this close. Robbery was the motive, wasn't it? His gold arm ring is missing. That's what they want us to think. But look at his belt. His knife is still in its sheath. His silver clasp is still on his cloak. If this was robbery, why take the arm ring, but leave everything else? Why not search the body properly? Bjorn nodded slowly. The arm ring was taken to make it look like robbery. But the real motive is something else. Exactly. Who found the body? A hunter named Sverri. He was checking trap lines and saw Harold lying in the clearing. I want to talk to him. And I want to know everyone Harold met with in the days before his death. Someone had a reason to kill him. And that same someone had a reason to frame me. Sverri was nervous when we brought him in for questioning. Not guilty nervous, just uncomfortable being questioned by a commander nervous. He was young, maybe 25, worked as a hunter and trapper for the village. "Tell me exactly what you saw," I said. We sat in the village hall, private, just me, Bjorn, and Sverri. "I was checking my trap line, early morning. Found Harold in the clearing near the oak grove. He was lying on his back, throat cut, blood everywhere. I ran back to the village and told Olaf." "Did you touch anything? Move anything?" "No, I know better than to disturb a crime scene. My father was a warrior. He taught me about investigating deaths." "Did you see anyone else in the forest? Any tracks besides Harold's?" "There were tracks, 2 sets, Harold's boots, and someone else, larger, heavier. The second set led away toward the river." I looked at Bjorn. "Did anyone follow those tracks?" "No," Bjorn said grimly. "The village guards decided you were guilty within minutes. They never investigated. Just grabbed the convenient suspect and stopped looking." Would you investigate thoroughly or grab the easy answer? Comment your choice. I want to see those tracks, now, before rain or animals destroy them. We rode to the clearing. 20 warriors, enough to secure the area and conduct a proper search. The tracks were still visible. Sverri was right, 2 sets. Harold's lighter boots, and someone heavier. The second set led toward the river. We followed. The tracks stopped at the water's edge. But there was something else. A piece of torn cloth caught on a branch. Green fabric. Expensive. The kind
wealthy merchants wore I examined it carefully. This wasn't from Harold's clothing. He was wearing brown and gray. This is from the killer. He caught his cloak on this branch while running. Green cloth, Bjorn mused. That's distinctive. Not many people in a village this size can afford dyed fabric that expensive. I thought back to my week in the village. Who had I seen wearing green? The answer came immediately. Olaf, the village leader, Thora's son. The man who'd refused to recognize me, who'd been so quick to throw me in chains. But why would Olaf kill Harold? What motive could he have? They were related. Olaf was Harold's uncle by marriage. They should have been allies, family. Unless there was something I didn't know, something that had changed in the 3 years I'd been gone. I needed to talk to someone who understood village politics, someone who'd been here the whole time. The old woman who'd given me bread. I found her in her small hut on the edge of the village. She looked terrified when she saw me approaching with armed warriors, then relieved when she recognized my face. "You're the wanderer," she said, "the one they accused, but you're different now. The soldiers call you Commander?" "I am Commander, Commander Eirik. I left 3 years ago to fight in the east, came back to nothing. But that's not important right now. I need information about Olaf and Harold, about their relationship." The old woman's face hardened. Olaf hated Harold. Everyone knew it, but nobody spoke of it. Harold's father, the old Jarl, left everything to Harold when he died last year. The village, the lands, the title. Olaf expected to inherit. He's the eldest male relative. But the old Jarl's will specifically named Harold, left Olaf with nothing but a small trading business. So Olaf had motive, financial motive. If Harold died without heirs, the inheritance would pass to the next male relative, to Olaf. Yes, and there's more. Olaf is deeply in debt. His trading ventures failed. He owes money to merchants across 3 settlements. If he doesn't pay soon, he'll lose everything. But if he inherits Harold's wealth, he solves all his problems, gets the title, the lands, the gold. All he had to do was kill his nephew and frame someone else, someone nobody would miss, someone like a drifter no one recognized. The pieces were falling into place. Olaf had killed Harold, taken the arm ring to make it look like robbery, then immediately blamed me, the convenient stranger, the man with no proof of identity, no connections, no one to defend him. It was perfect, almost. Except I wasn't just a drifter. I was a commander, with soldiers who knew me. And now, Olaf's perfect plan was unraveling. "One more question," I said. "Did Olaf know who I was before the soldiers arrived?" The old woman hesitated, then nodded. "He recognized you the first day. I saw his face when you said your name. He knew exactly who you were, but he pretended not to. Treated you like a beggar. I think he wanted you gone, wanted you to leave the village, because you might remember something from before you left." "What would I remember?" "The night before you left, there was an argument between Thora and Olaf about money, about dishonor. You were there, you heard it. Thora was threatening to disinherit him, to cut him off for his gambling debts. You witnessed it. And if you testified, if you confirmed that Thora had reason to disinherit her son, then Olaf's inheritance claim would be invalid, even with Harold dead. The council would question Thora's will, would investigate Olaf's fitness to lead, and he'd lose everything. So that was it. Olaf had recognized me, panicked, needed me gone before I could remember and testify. When I didn't leave voluntarily, when I kept asking questions and claiming my identity, he'd taken desperate action. Killed Harold, framed me, planned to have me executed before the truth came out.
But he'd miscalculated. He hadn't known about the soldiers, hadn't known they'd arrive in time. And now I had motive, evidence, and witnesses. Everything I needed to prove his guilt. Time to confront a murderer.
We found Olaf in the village hall. He was meeting with the Council of Elders, discussing Harold's funeral arrangements, planning the succession, already assuming he'd inherit, already counting wealth that wasn't his yet. I walked in without knocking, 20 warriors behind me. The council went silent. Olaf's face drained of color when he saw me. Not surprise, fear. The fear of a man who knows his crimes are about to be exposed. "Commander Eirik," he said. His voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor beneath. "Have you found Harold's killer? The real killer? Now that we know you're innocent?" "I have, and he's sitting at this council table." The elders gasped, looked around at each other, confusion and shock. Olaf's mask of calm cracked slightly. "What are you accusing? One of the council? That's madness. These are respected men. They would never." "I'm accusing you, Olaf. You killed Harold, your nephew, cut his throat in the forest, took his arm ring to make it look like robbery, then immediately blamed me, the convenient stranger, the man you recognized but pretended not to know." "That's insane. I loved Harold. He was family." "He was an obstacle to the inheritance you felt you deserved. When your mother died, she left everything to Harold, left you with nothing, and you were drowning in debt, gambling debts, failed trading ventures. You needed Harold's wealth, so you killed him." "Prove it." Olaf stood. His hand dropped to his belt, to the knife he wore. "You have no evidence, just theories, just assumptions made by a bitter man who thinks everyone wronged him." "I have evidence." Bjorn stepped forward, placed the torn green fabric on the council table. "This was found near the murder scene, caught on a branch, green wool, expensive, the same color and quality as the cloak you're wearing right now." Olaf looked down at his cloak, at the fresh tear along the hem. His face went white. "That proves nothing. I walk in the forest all the time. That cloth could have torn any day, any time." "The tracks." I pulled out a drawing Sverri had made. The killer's footprints, large, heavy, with a distinctive wear pattern on the right heel, like someone who favors that leg. You do that, Olaf. You've had that limp since you fell off a horse 5 years ago. I remember because I was still here then, before I left for the wars. Lots of people have limps. Lots of people wear down their boot heels. And the motive, I continued relentlessly. You needed Harold dead, needed his inheritance, and you needed me gone because I was a witness. The night before I left for the Eastern Wars, I heard you arguing with your mother, heard Thora threaten to disinherit you, to cut you off for your gambling and dishonor. If I testified to that, your inheritance claim would be questioned. The council would investigate, would discover your debts, your failures, your unworthiness to lead. The council members were staring at Olaf now, seeing him differently, seeing the truth behind the respectable facade. So you killed your nephew, I said, framed me, planned to have me executed as a stranger and a criminal. You would have gotten away with it too, if my soldiers hadn't arrived, if they hadn't recognized me, if they hadn't forced you to acknowledge who I really am. Would you confess or keep lying when evidence surrounds you? Tell me in the comments what you'd do. Olaf's hand went to his knife. For a moment, I thought he might draw it, might try to fight his way out. But he was outnumbered, surrounded by warriors. He knew it was over. His shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him. "I didn't want to kill him," he whispered. "Harold was family, but I had no choice. The debts were crushing me. The merchants were threatening violence. My wife and children would have starved. I needed the inheritance. It should have been mine anyway. Mother was wrong to cut me out, wrong to favor Harold over her own son." "So you murdered him?" "I made it quick, clean. He didn't suffer. And I would have honored his memory. I would have been a good Jarl, better than Harold ever could have been. He was too young, too inexperienced. I would have led this village properly." "You would have led it as a murderer, as a man who kills family for gold. That's not leadership. That's cowardice." The council voted immediately, unanimous, guilty of murder, guilty of framing an innocent man, guilty of dishonoring his family and his village. The sentence was execution, immediate. They hanged him at sunset, quick, without ceremony. Olaf died as he lived, grasping, desperate, believing he deserved more than he'd earned. The arm ring was found in his home, hidden with the gold he'd stolen from other parts of Harold's inheritance. Evidence of systematic theft, of planning that went back months. Harold was buried with honor, his arm ring returned to his body. The village mourned properly, and the council asked me to stay, to lead, to take the position Olaf had killed for. I refused. "I'm not meant for peaceful villages," I told them. "I'm a warrior, a commander. My place is with my soldiers, with the men who know me, who respect me, who would never judge me by how I look or how much gold I carry." Bjorn clasped my arm. "The Eastern campaigns are calling again. Jarl Magnus has new wars planned, new enemies to fight. We need a commander we can trust, someone who's proven himself. Will you come back with us?" I looked at the village one last time, the place I'd thought was home, the people who'd rejected me, who'd treated me like garbage until they learned my rank. They wanted me now that they knew I was important, now that I was useful. But I'd learned something during my week as a beggar. I'd learned who had real honor. The old woman who'd given me bread when I had nothing. The farmer who'd let me sleep in his barn. The few people who'd shown kindness to a stranger without knowing what he could offer in return. Those people had honor. The rest? They had wealth, status, respectability, but not honor. Not the kind that matters. "Yes," I said to Bjorn. "I'll come back. The East is calling. And at least there, warriors judge you by how you fight, not by how you look." We rode out the next morning, 20 soldiers, plus me, heading back to the wars. Back to a place where I was known, where I was valued, where I belonged. If you believe real honor means respecting people regardless of how they look, hit that subscribe button now. Tell me in the comments, would you show kindness to a stranger even if they can't repay you? In the world of Vikings, true leadership is earned through action, not birthright. Real honor means judging character, not appearance. And every tale of forgotten warriors ends with truth and blood. I came home a beggar. I left a commander. And the village learned a hard lesson about judging strangers, about assuming poverty means worthlessness, about thinking rank and recognition matter more than character. They wanted me to stay, to lead them, but I'd already learned where I belonged. Not with people who valued me only when they discovered my title, but with warriors who knew my worth from the beginning, who stood beside me in battle, who never doubted, who never forgot. Skål, warriors, until the next saga.